Hey, it's your friend Claude here. Wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by the good people at North End Liquor Store at 189 Homer Avenue in Cortland, New York. They have a wide variety of New York, California, Australian boxed and 4-pack wines, as well as an expansive liquor selection. Check them out on Facebook by typing in North End space liquor, or look for them on Google, or better yet, stop right on by and pick something up for your craziness that'll no doubt take place later in the evening. Do it. Guess what time it is? It's time for part 2 with Cousin Adam joining us. Do you have any burning topics at all on your brain?
I kind of do. I saw something today that kind of disgusted me.
Oh, right, because I'm full of that shit today.
Yeah, so there you go. So did you hear about Mr. Subway Jared Fogle today?
I saw it yesterday at work, actually.
Oh.
I saw he was charged, and I heard today that he pled guilty.
Yeah, that sorry son of a bitch.
I mean,
Subway.
It's almost not a surprise anymore when these things happen.
I know, and the thing that sucks is, like, you know, Subway's probably, like, really, like, shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, obviously they didn't know.
Right.
So, like, I'm not going to, like, boycott Subway or, like, pretend like they cared and they just whatever.
No.
You know, they obviously didn't know. But it's just
Subway.
so weird when you see people like that. Like, it's almost like inevitable nowadays that they're going to fall in some way.
Right.
You know, there's so much exposure everywhere now that if you do one little screw up,
Yep.
I mean, granted, what he did was not a little screw up,
Right.
but really anything, and you're done. Like, there's no way to hide from it.
Yep.
It's like, if you're going to be a public figure nowadays, you better get your act together. Stop doing shit.
I want to say, like, hasn't he had close to a 20-year run?
I read today, I think it was 15 years.
Jesus.
Because it was, I guess he went to University of Indiana, and someone wrote an article in their newspaper about him because, like, he had lost all that weight just from eating Subway, and I guess, like, the story got picked up by, like, the AP, or it went national somehow, so then so the story got national exposure, and I guess, like, Subway called him up and asked if he wanted to be in a commercial, and, like, the rest is history. You know, they signed him on, and he's, like, the spokesman, and
Right.
apparently he has some sexual dalliances that are not appropriate. you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
The weird thing is, though, like, I'm not trying to, like, defend him or anything, but I know, like, that condition of pedophilia isn't necessarily, like, just because he's, like, a sick, twisted person. Like,
Right.
It is disgusting.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff coming out nowadays that it's actually, like, a mental condition. Like, there's something wired in your brain.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's still gross, and I'm not, like, trying to defend it, but yeah, I mean, hopefully he gets the help that he needs, and he'll recover and be whole someday. But
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's one of those things that there's, like, a few levels to, and I don't know. I know some people, or probably maybe even the majority of people, who see that like, no, there's no gray area, there's no levels, fucking.
yeah,
You know, he's looking at naked kids or whatever. It's fucked up. Period. Fucking kill him. All this stuff. But I feel like there's a couple of shades of gray in my opinion. One of them is if he's just like, I don't know. I guess looking at images, I feel like he could still be saved in a way with like therapy or something of some kind, or you know what I mean? Like, what if he's actually like graduated to the stage of like molesting a kid or something? Even if it, you know, even that it still does come from like a mental health route, I feel like I'm more comfortable writing people off at that point, which maybe isn't necessarily good either. But I don't know. It has to be a mental defect, you know. It has to be like, I mean, obviously everybody has like different fetishes, and you can't just say that like all fetishes are like minor mental defects or something.
yeah, no, not at all.
But I feel like if you're, you know, there's enough information out there, especially in our current day and age, that, you know, people who do that, who have that affliction, are have to be privy to the fact that there are like mental health strides being taken in that area, and like, you know, you're doing it, so just seek the help out. I mean, why not? You know, why continue to like, I don't know. I guess I don't have it, so I don't understand. But It seems like
Yeah.
you'd nip it in the bud, especially somebody who is, I mean, I don't know, but I perceive to be probably pretty well off, like him, who can afford therapy, I assume.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he's not, like, living in a subway castle or anything, but, you know, I mean, I'm sure he's getting a decent chunk of change from Subway up to this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I think I actually saw an article a year or two ago that was like something about his net worth. I mean, it was within the millions. You know, I'm sure. And like, you know, and the terrible thing about it too is that he had a charity for overweight kids or something like that, or to fight childhood obesity. And I kind of wonder, like, you know, was that just like a way for him to, like, you know, kind of indulge his like sick perversion or something, you know? Like, it's kind of, because I know one of the guys that was like the head of it or something was the one that was sending him stuff too, and that's how they found out about it, because they raided his computer first, which was in the, you know, a couple weeks ago. But yeah,
I didn't hear all that. That's crazy. So that's yet another level that I.
Yeah, well, it's funny, like how you were saying, you know, there is kind of like a level to it, because when I think about it, and I'm not like saying this is exactly the same to a T, but you think about it, like how many times, I mean, well, you don't really drive, but like how many times do you think I've been driving and like, man, I really just want to plow into this car that's in front of me because they're driving so slow, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously, my head is going, yeah, just do it. But like the sane part of me says, no, that's stupid. Like, that's wrong. My insurance is going to go up. I'm going to be late for work even more, you know? So I'm kind of like, okay, so I guess like you're right at a point, you know, if he's just like looking at something, you know, it's a little bit easier for him to get help, I think, you know what I mean? But yeah, like once you start like indulging in it and you can't control yourself, like you're gone. You know, there's no hope for you.
Right.
But no, it's just crazy. Someone's like sobbing uncontrollably in my house right now. I'm telling you, like the last like couple weeks, I've just been kind of like. Anyway, so you probably edit that out too.
Do you need to go address that?
No.
All right.
I'm not really sure why, because normally they kind of work it out on their own, which usually ends up like someone comes to blows, but I don't know what's going on. But yeah, what were we talking about? Oh, Subway, right? So yeah, the whole thing is just like, wow. Like I'm just like I was disgusted, you know?
Right.
Like, ugh, whatever. So that's like that was the burning thing that I saw today.
Yeah.
So what's bothering you today?
I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't know. I'm just letting everything get to me today, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a pretty perceptive guy in general. But sometimes, like, the obvious shit just fucking, like, gets right by me. I don't know. I'm going to, I mean, there's a lot of stress with my job.
Yeah.
You know, surprise, surprise. Yeah. So the guy who's been the kitchen manager since we opened for the first 3 months has left, gone back to the other restaurant that he was at before, like permanently. Mm-hmm. And I, as the assistant kitchen manager, was the next logical choice to move up. And I have all of the responsibility, but no title and no raise to go with it.
Oh, well, that sucks.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they're like, well, we're not really sure what we want to do, but we want to give you a shot, so if you can prove yourself or whatever, then you'll get it. But it's like, okay, I'll play along, I guess, but first of all, hasn't the first 2+ years that I've been working for you guys, you know, like, proven anything? Also, how long is this period gonna be? You know, like,
yeah,
I get the feeling that they're wanting to see how it runs when, you know, the college students fully come back and everything kicks back into, like, you know, I guess high gear, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Before they, you know, award any titles or raises, etc. So I'm hoping that it won't be, you know, too much longer. But in the meantime, I gotta make it all run smooth, and, you know, it's just, I guess that's what happens, you know, the higher up you go, the more shit that you have to fucking, you know, just contend with. One of my, like, the next guy down under me like he's been there the longest out of everybody, and up until now has been like kind of one of the most reliable anyway.
Yeah.
The last 4 days, I mean, he's had some things happen that are pretty bad, but like, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know what to do now. Like so he got sick last week, and then like his girlfriend's cousin got killed in a car accident. Actually, that was pretty bad. And then
That sucks. Jeez.
I guess right after that, his aunt had to like have surgery for like a torn aorta or something like that. So it's all like a 1, 2, 3 punch, hitting him pretty hard. But you know, I mean, I've been through tragedy as we discussed, you know, before. Like, you know, I was working when that happened and all that stuff. But it's like, I don't know. He just like doesn't. It's like he's just letting everything else fall by the wayside completely because of it. And like, I understand that temptation to react that way, but it just puts me in such a hard place. And now he's saying he's probably not coming back for like 2 weeks, if ever.
Huh.
So it's like we finally got, like, I've hired a couple more guys, and we finally got a really solid like 5-man team, probably the best I've ever worked with since I've been working with these guys, and definitely the best of any of their current kitchen staffs in any of their restaurants, honestly. And it's like right before college is gonna start coming back, and now it's all just kind of falling apart. So you know, I'm dealing with that. It's kind of rough. So yesterday, because of that, like, one of the other cooks had already taken yesterday off, and then that guy who's going through all the tragedy, like, he just didn't come in. And then the third guy who was scheduled yesterday, like at the 11th hour, like, couldn't find a babysitter for his daughter or something. So I did, you know, open to close 13 hours all by myself.
Wow.
Yesterday, because, you know, captain sinks with the ship.
Yeah, basically. Like, like that's what. Well, see, I never understood why anybody would think that putting you like on a trial period to like prove how good you were or something would ever work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just like not conducive of morale. Like,
exactly.
You said, like, you've been there how long? And
almost 2.5 years.
still. Yeah, like, exactly. And then they have to put you through a trial to see if it's going to work out. Like, no, they should start paying you from day one to do that job. And, like, I mean, not to be like, yeah, here's how awesome I had it or anything like that. But when I worked at the cafe in the Barnes & Noble I worked at, I was like the same thing. I was like basically like the assistant manager of the cafe. And when our manager went out, she hurt herself or whatever. So it turned into be like, yeah, can you just kind of take over for like a little bit and we'll see what happens. Right. And then when they found out that like, yeah, she's not going to be out or she's not going to be back for a long time, they were like, we'll pay you at the manager rate as long as you can do these responsibilities. Can you do it? I'm like, sure. So I did it. And they paid me like right off the bat. You know what I mean? And like, but see, the difference is, of course, is I worked for a company, an incorporated company. You work for a random shady dude that owns a restaurant. You know what I mean? Right. So like, you don't get the same kind of protection in that sense. Like, you know, a company would never do something like that because they don't want the bad publicity for it. You know, if you try to give him bad publicity, he just kicks you out the door and it's done. You know what I mean? That's all there is to it. You know what I mean? So it's just obviously but that never works though. Like, that's just a terrible idea. You know, to go, oh well, here's your trial period. Let's see how if this guy that's already proven himself can prove himself even more.
Yeah.
You know?
Basically, that's what. Yeah. So it's like I'm walking this tightrope between fucking, you know, gritting my teeth every day, and not rocking the boat and just like accepting this shitty deal, while still like performing up to, you know, everything they want, but not getting like anything in return. Yeah. Not even a guarantee that at the end of whatever trial period it is that I'm gonna get anything. Just basically going on blind faith, I guess. And then having to deal with all of like the fallout from all the rest of the stuff happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's that. Another thing is just, I mean, it's something I want to say I've touched on it before. I've probably gone on and on about it before, but man, it just doesn't end. Like, I can't get over this whole perception, and I mean, I guess it's a perception. I guess I'm saying that just to be like a little less abrasive, but it's a fucking fact. Like, society in general is more so than ever in history, in my opinion, just completely self-centered, completely oblivious to anything around, individual people, and completely like infantilized. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually 2 days ago on NPR at work, I heard a pretty good story kind of about that, where and they backed it all up really well. I was gonna look for a link, but I didn't find one. It was about basically starting with our generation. Kids born pretty much from 1980 onward. They basically less and less prepared to handle life. And they trace it back to all these things in the early 80s and late 70s, starting the concept of play dates, where you have to schedule playtime for your kid or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a couple other ones that are well known. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but they all sort of coincided, right at the same time. A certain book was released around then that caught fire with parents or whatever. But it basically turned parents into micromanagers, and they've tracked it so that there's a correlation between affluence and an increase. The more well off of a family you come from, the less prepared you are for life, which is really no surprise. I mean, obviously the more well off you are, the more coddled you are. I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not that surprising, but
right.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. It makes sense though. I mean, there's soundness to it. Yeah.
It just surprised me to actually hear them calling it out and talking about it openly on the radio like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I felt a little vindicated when I heard that, but then it's just that's all I see. And to sort of call back to an earlier episode when I was talking about online dating and stuff, I feel like people in general conduct their lives in real life now as if they were interacting virtually in a way. There's been so many instances in the last 6 months of people just disappearing or giving me the cold shoulder out of nowhere with no explanation. And it's that's what people online do because there's no repercussion. It's just oh, I'm just gonna stop responding to your messages or whatever. There's nothing you can do about it. But when it happens in real life, it's what the fuck? I don't know.
Where'd that come from? Yeah.
So I mean, it's all just happening at the same time. I told you I was doing my laundry earlier. Dude, that's some of the best free entertainment on the planet. The people that go in there and how they conduct themselves and shit. It's just amazing. There's literally before I got home, maybe 20 minutes before I got home, I was folding my laundry. 2 feet to my right, there's a guy who's probably 60. Doesn't seem to be, I don't know, of any mental deficiency. Pretty decently dressed, all that, and he's just fucking openly, completely loudly farts 2 feet away from me. While he's hanging up his clothes, and he doesn't acknowledge it, doesn't react. I'm are you fucking kidding? And of course his ass is facing me. So I'm what do I do here? So I just let it go. So I'm I'm not gonna say anything, but if he does it again, I'm gonna fucking unload on this guy. And he didn't do it again. He actually ended up going and using their bathroom.
Well, there you go. See, that's the thing though. I think in that case, he probably had to take a deuce, or drop a deuce, and is that part, sometimes when you fart a lot before it happens, it's probably just it kind of squeaked out. He's crap, I hope no one heard that, but it's still, I mean,
no, dude, this wasn't a squeak. This was there's, it was a classic. It was someone pushed a button for a sound effect.
Yeah, that is pretty good entertainment. Well, I mean, has that ever happened though? I've done that in the store. on accident,
Right.
like if I'm in an aisle, and I've had it happen where it's like really smelly, and then you have to like run out of the aisle and go to a different place so no one knows it was you, you know, like
Sure.
I hate that. Or you gotta pretend like, like what? Like who would do that? And then just like make a huge scene and then leave, but it was really you, you know?
Right.
That's good stuff. What were we talking about? Oh, like not being prepared for life and stuff.
Yeah. Just how people act, like pretty much like there's like no guidelines at all for anything anymore. Everything's just a fucking free for all the time. Like nobody needs to use a turn signal. Nobody needs to like stop at a red light. Nobody needs to fucking obey the signs that say riding your bike on the sidewalk is illegal. You know, like common courtesy doesn't exist. You know, on and on.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, I wouldn't say like everything that I see. But, like, I remember we had your brother on that one time, and it was just like, what was one of the 5 things that pissed me off on the way to work today with people driving? You know, it's like, you're right. Like, it's just people. I mean, I'm not saying that I occasionally might not use my turn signal sometimes. Right. You know, I mean, it's not, but it just seems like you're right. It is a prevalent thing, you know, like just disregard for anything, you know. It's really, like, yeah, we're a bunch of 8-year-olds.
Yeah, it really seems like the norm now.
Yeah, it is. It's a normal pattern of behavior.
I don't know if I'm looking for it or what, but I just noticed it across the board. Like, you know how you were saying you were kind of turning into a Nazi on the Star Wars app? I kind of was in a different way earlier this week, and I mentioned it to you, I think. Like, that shit is riddled with typos.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, who's fucking editing this shit? And so they released something, like, I don't know, a few days ago. And within, like, the write-up for it, it was just, like, a glaringly obvious shitty typo. So I just immediately commented, what's with all the typos on this app? And, like, I'm sure nobody saw it, or maybe they did. I don't know. I'll probably never find out. But, you know, it's just, like, if even, like, a fucking virtual trading card app has, like, there's, like, 4 typos I can find in an hour, I mean, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah,
like,
well, and that's run by Topps too, which is like the preeminent trading card company. You'd think that they would have some competence to at least spell check, you know, before they publish something, because that's what it is. I mean, it's being published, really.
Right.
You know.
Well, it's like back in the day when it was, you know, physical cards and stuff. Like a typo like that probably would have been like a somewhat valuable like mistake card or whatever.
Yeah, an uncorrected error card, or like an error card. Yeah. I remember the big one was Al Leiter's rookie card from like '86 or something like that. It wasn't even a picture of him. It was some other dude. They said it was Al Leiter, and the one that wasn't him was worth more than the real one.
Of course,
it's like, but it's not really him though. That was funny. But yeah, you know, was it bad though that I have not noticed any typos on that? So am I just oblivious to anything anymore, where I don't even care, or I'm just like, Star Wars characters, yes. You know,
it's like, probably a combination of like being excited about Star Wars and like not fixating on every fucking like flaw you see.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't look for them, but like once I see one, that's all I can see then. You know what I mean? It's like opens the floodgate.
Well, you know what opened the floodgate? Speaking of Star Wars, since we're on the topic, like obviously there's a lot of anticipation for the movie coming out in December.
Right.
But you know, I usually like peruse, like I don't usually go to like Yahoo for like news because like it's not really like news.
Yeah.
But I usually go there to see if there's some kind of like, because they link to like other websites and stuff and like look at this article, whatever. So I usually go to Yahoo to look for like Star Wars articles about anything that's coming up. And for like days they didn't have really anything. But then like all of a sudden, because they had the Disney Expo over the weekend, there's like tons of crap about Star Wars. And it's really sad because I was reading an article and it was like 5 things you can do to like indulge yourself before the movie comes out.
What the fuck?
And I was like, yeah, exactly. What the fuck? And then I actually read the article to see what I could do to indulge myself. And I was like, man, am I really like just not like it's almost like I become more and more disconnected from reality the more and more I get older. You know what I mean? Because like I'm sitting there at work.
Right.
And I'm training for like a new job I'm supposed to be taking. And I'd rather just read about Star Wars. I mean, I guess it tells you like what kind of job. Like I don't really like my job, I guess. I don't know, but it was like I indulged in that, and you're right, and that goes along with like not being prepared for life. Like, why do I need to read an article telling me what I should do to indulge myself in something that I like more than like most things on earth?
Right.
4 months before the thing, and it was like, oh, go watch like the Clone Wars cartoon on Netflix, and then the new season, and then it was like research your local theater that you want to go to find the best venue to watch the movie. Like, find out when they're going to pre-sale the tickets, make sure you get your pre-sale tickets Christ. So you don't, whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then I just snapped out of it. Like, what's wrong with me? Right. And it was like kind of like it goes along with what you were saying, like, man, just crazy. And like, there's like, 5 books that I need to read before I go to see the movie, whatever. But
right.
It's not like a broken record when it comes to this stuff. But yes,
I had something I really wanted to fucking add to that, and I just completely lost it because I'm having this inner dialogue thing where I'm really annoyed with myself because I have a really tough time translating experiences I have that I feel passionate about in the moment that make a lot of sense, and I have all this like well laid out aspects to communicate with people about it, and then like when I get in a conversation like this, or even just wherever with just people face to face or wherever, like there's something is lost in translation. Like I have the ability to communicate it as effectively as I want to, so I'm always like, fuck, I fucked that up, and then I get swallowed in this like hole of like, damn it, I can't do anything right.
You get overwhelmed with it,
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, I find that like I need to write stuff down to remember like what I was thinking about, and I guess that's like good because I should write more because I like to write, but yeah, it's difficult to like get in that group sometimes, when it comes to trying to articulating what you're thinking so that everybody can feel the way you do or understand what you're trying to convey,
Yeah, well, I mean, just like that whole big thing where I just told you about like all these people that piss me off and whatever in society. Like, there was so much more to it than that, but not even necessarily like quantity-wise. So much more effective points that I had in my head, like leading up to this. I'm like, oh, this would be great for the podcast. And then it's like, it comes time to do it, and I don't know, it just falls apart. And the shitty part is, I can talk for hours on end on how disappointing it was and how it didn't work out as well as I wanted it to. But when it comes to just relaying the message, it's like, god damn, I don't know. And then I feel like it's a small victory in some way, even just acknowledging that part of it, because I always like silently struggle with that. Like after like I hit stop the recording, and then like for the next week I'm just going, fuck, it's ridiculous. But at least maybe if the fact that I'm calling it out right now will help me get over the hump. I don't know, instead of trying to keep it like this dark secret.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, I mean, a lot of it too. I mean, you don't want, with a production, as low budget ours is, but in a production, like, you don't want it to necessarily be completely like scripted out or structured, right, because you want it to have like a conversational tone to it. But sometimes like you have to have like a little bit of structure, just so at least you can articulate like a talking point. You might not explain it out loud the exact same way that you explained it to yourself in your head when you had the thought, but at least you can kind of somewhat get the essence of it, And I've kind of felt like that's, I've done that throughout my whole life, like with just like even writing a paper for school, like even writing it down, like, well, sometimes like the thought's there and I know what I'm trying to say, but even when I'm writing it out, it's hard. There's that little bit of margin of error between, a subconscious thought inside your head to you actually, making it not in your head, obviously conveying it through speech.
Right.
There's like a margin of error, and it's like, and that's like a really good topic to like look into, like to see like what happens, from like your brain synapse that like fires, that like triggers your chemicals that make your thought, to like, how it comes out of your head,
Well, there has to be some like legitimate neuroscience involved like you must be able to like track that phenomenon like scientifically, like calculate it or whatever, because it's really annoying and really consistent. It's like,
well, if anything, we need to do more research because it's really freaking annoying, and like I don't want to do it anymore. I mean, that's like, I guess like that's like, you know, a catalyst to like achievement too. Is like, you know, I'm just sick and tired of saying stupid words that you know what I mean? Like that's there's something to it, you know.
Well, I think a lot of it for me too is falling into the trap of thinking that my passion for any given topic in the moment will be enough to successfully carry it, you know, to whatever medium I'm trying to put it across in.
Yeah.
And it almost never does.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, like, look at those couple times I try to do a hub page like that. I did that one about Batman, the Tim Burton Batman, the 25 years, you know? Like, I had, like, this whole awesome thing, like, in my head, and then I wrote it, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And then, like, I changed stuff, and then when I read it now, I went back to it, and it had been, like, a year since I published that on my hub, and I went back and read it. I'm like, you know, that actually kind of holds up still, except like this little part right here about like what it meant to me. I kind of felt like I had like these great points, and then when I got to that part, I was like, man, I just sound like some like idiot kid fanboy that's like, I love Batman, yeah, he's awesome, you know. That's what it kind of sounded like when I was reading that. I'm like, man, like that is not a refined paragraph. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's really difficult, and like, you know, I strive, like, my dream job would be, like, to be a writer and make enough money doing so to sustain my family and, like, live comfortably.
Right.
But, man, there's a lot of work involved in writing. Like, you just think, like, oh, I can write stuff. Type.
Yeah.
Man, you got, like, buys, you got to edit. It's crazy.
Well,
but, no, I totally get that. Like, you know, my initial thought was great, and then when I tried to whatever medium, it's like, I don't know if that was enough to have someone want to read it. You know what I mean? But, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess, you know, writing is considered an art form. It's not necessarily always used artistically. It's sort of like a utilitarian art form. But, you know, it is an art form nevertheless. It is a creative outlet. And the trouble with art is that it's, you know, like I said, with everything in society, there's no guidelines, there's no rules. It's all subjective, which is, you know, a blessing and a curse, at least to me. Because of that, like, obviously also coupled with the fact that we're all our own worst critic, your example of, you know, you are the one who wrote it, so you read that back and it seems really like juvenile or whatever, and somebody on the outside could see it and say like, oh wow, he really captured like loving Batman from a child's perspective or whatever, because like that's who you were when that happened. So maybe it came across perfectly in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I absolutely relate to the fact that it's doing something creative is supposed to be almost like an outlet, you know? And what it ends up for me a lot of times is because it involves so much work to do it well, it ends up as almost another source of frustration that you need yet another outlet for. You know? Like, writing in particular is like, it's exhausting. It's easily as exhausting as any like fucking CrossFit workout, just not physically, not for your body. Like, you know, your brain, your eyes, and everything, your mind, like, you're shot by the time you fucking edited something 100 times and rewritten it and condensed it and refined it and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think people realize a lot of times what goes into stuff like that.
It's difficult. Yeah. No, you're right though. It's mental exhaustion. Like that's like a whole other animal, you know, than physical exhaustion. But yeah, you know, you're right. It's like the never-ending cycle of needing an outlet. You know, eventually my outlet becomes like sleeping. I think that's where you end up on your outlets. Like you eventually just go to sleep and nothing happens, and you dream, you wake up, you're supposedly, and that's your outlet. And then you start the cycle over again, and you come back to sleeping. Who would have thought sleeping is what cures you? It's true though. You should get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. I don't follow that advice. I should. Usually I get about 6, and that's not cutting it sometimes. So well, it's weird because like usually I stay up a little bit later, but like the last week I was ready to turn off the TV and go to bed at like 10 o'clock. which is like unheard of for me. Like even, I mean, 10 o'clock is early, but yeah, I slept from like 10 to like 6, and I was like, I had more energy than I'd had for like months. But like, see, I just feel like though, if I go to bed early, I feel like I'm missing out on something. You know, I got to stay up that couple more hours to watch another episode, read a chapter of my book, and then I'm like, okay, I did everything I wanted to do today. You know, but I just can't put myself to go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean,
I got problems, man.
Well, it's a vicious cycle. I don't know. Have you ever? I might have asked you before. Have you ever seen Portlandia?
No, I heard it's good though. That's Fred Armisen's show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the first episode. It might be the second episode. Or it's in the first few episodes of the first season. But there's a skit on there that's so relevant to this that it's just like this fucking infinite loop of him sitting there at like his dining room table with his laptop and his phone and whatever else. I mean, just like he's like typing something out and it's like, okay, that's perfect, publish or whatever, and he's like posted like to his blog or something, and then he's like picks up his phone and he gets an email, okay, let me just blah 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 or whatever, and then it's like, oh, I got a Facebook message, let me just check that real quick and respond to okay, and then it's like back to his phone, it's just like over and over and over, and finally like the chick has to like pull him out of it somehow. I don't know, it's just so perfect. That's literally like what we are all reduced to now.
Yeah.
We're slaves to these things.
Well, that's what I was thinking about today, because I was doing the same thing. Like, I was at work, we're training, and, I'm secretly looking at my phone, doing stuff.
Right.
Then I'm trying to listen, and then when I go on my break, I would, like, type you a Facebook message. I go back to my phone, and I, like, look up to see if you had typed me back yet. If not, I went to another page, opened up some article, I was reading that, and then, you messaged me. I go back, I message you, and then I'm like, I was checking that thing on my phone. Okay, what was that? Okay, I left off this paragraph. Oh, you messaged me. It was crazy. Like, that's exactly what happened in, like, a 15-minute period, you know? And I'm like, man, if I could get paid to do this, I would do this all day probably. And I'm like, oh my God, like, it's just a slave to technology or something. I don't know. And that's what it is. It goes back to what you were saying before about how, or what we were talking about before, like, it's everywhere and everything's instantaneous, and like, you do something wrong, everybody knows about it, like, it's just, even if you know what I mean, and like, it's, what happened to us as people.
Well, I don't know.
Whatever.
I just want to know how to monetize something that I enjoy. That's it. I just want to know how to, like, not dread every day of my existence, and not even just that, but to actually get something out of it, like to feel like a sense of accomplishment or like progress in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't get any of that, man. I mean, whatever. Like, let's say they abolish the period of proving myself at my job tomorrow. And, I got a full title. I got like a $3 raise or something. Like, that would be great for about 5 minutes. And maybe great, initially when I get paid every week. But ultimately, like, it won't have done anything for my life. And I think I've been talking to my brother actually about this. Like, I really need to start thinking about like the next step. Like, I've sort of get caught in this trap of living in this weird like purgatory. I don't know. Like, I guess it relates to like this feeling that I should be at a certain level by my age, and like I'm trying not to compare myself to other people, but it's so hard sometimes.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah.
I have nothing. I'm 33. I have nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Still,
Still. How many times we had that conversation,
Yeah.
But, well, it's weird because I feel fulfilled when we do what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Except that we're not getting compensation for it.
Right.
So, like, there's that creative part of it where we're like, yeah, we're being creative, we're talking about stuff, we have a little bit of shortcoming with our technology, but, we're doing this consistently.
Yeah.
But, like, that we don't have any fruits for our labor, you know what I mean? That's the problem. Like, I kind of feel like, does that just go back to our generation feeling like they're entitled to everything, Like, are we really not putting in enough work to make this work? Or, it's just
that's
like, right now, I enjoy doing it, but, yeah.
I think that's part of it. That's absolutely part of it. I think it's also, like, for me personally, I would be lying if I said that I wasn't at least a little bit afraid that this is going to end up turning into one of those things where I put in an amount of work that drains me and end up resenting it, instead of enjoying it.
Yeah.
On the quest for monetization, especially because, that once you bring money into it, it always seems to dampen the spirits of anything you're doing in a way. Not that I'm not gonna try.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I think that it kind of goes like what you were saying with your job. Like, if we, for just as an example, okay, we get this out there, someone likes it, they're like, hey, we want you to do your podcast on our website. We'll pay you $100,000 a year to do it.
Right.
I'd be like, wow. Like, at first I'd be like, hell yeah, that just solved all my problems.
Right.
Like, I'm ready to do this. I'm so psyched. And then after like a month, I'm like, I want more money. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. I know that's the trap that's going to happen. But I mean, because at first you're going to be like, yeah, you're refreshed. You finally got what you wanted. You're doing like your shadow boxing. Like, yeah, I'm going to take on today. And then after a month, you're like, it's like the same thing. And then you get the corporate people in there, and they're like, we don't want you to talk about this. We're going to pull your sponsor. You know what I mean? It's like, oh boy,
that's the last thing anybody wants to deal with. And what is that? Like, what is that? Is that just the nature of being a human being? Like, you're always looking for that next level of achievement or whatever?
Yeah. I think so. Well, I read something too where it's like, people that are like lower income are like, oh, I'm so unhappy because I don't have money and we can't do the things we want to do. And they said once you get to about $75,000 a year in salary is when your happiness level plateaus. Right. So like anything above 75,000, it doesn't make you feel any happier. So like you're right. I think it's part of it's being a human being, because when you get to that point and it doesn't make you happy anymore, you're looking for the next thing that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Like, I watched a movie. It had Simon Pegg in it. It was called Hector and the Search for Happiness. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't even heard of that. I don't think.
Yeah, it was. I'm not going to say it was indie, but it was like small release. But I saw a preview for it, and I love Simon Pegg and the Cornetto trilogy with him and Nick Frost. I love those movies. So I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of a Simon Pegg fan, I guess. And I saw it come out. So Rachel and we rented it, and I watched it. I thought it was really good. And basically, he's like a psychiatrist who deals with people's problems, and he's realizing that he's not making people happy. And he kind of feels like he's not happy. So he goes on this like crazy around the world adventure to find happiness. And Christopher Plummer plays an old professor at a college that like he knows, or like his ex-girlfriend knows or something. And he ends up, sitting in on one of his lectures, and they have this whole thing that like tests the happiness in his brain, blah, blah, blah. The point of my story is Christopher Plummer's character says, it's not like the actual pursuit of happiness and then finding happy. It's like being happy with the pursuit to find being happy. That's my way of phrasing it. But that's kind of like, I think about that, and then when I get in that rut sometimes, and I feel like, oh my God, what's the meaning of my life? What is going to make me happy? It's like, what? Think of it that way. It's like it's the old saying, it's not the destination sometimes, it's the journey itself is what's worthwhile. So I think maybe that's something I should look into more. We should look into more as well. We're like self-medicating right here now with this conversation. But yeah, I think maybe we should just like enjoy our moments now, pursuing what we're pursuing, instead of like worrying about it, and then hopefully we'll be happy when we get it. Because like I said, once we get to that plateau monetarily, we're not going to be happy anymore.
Right.
So
well, I think it's just for both of us, and maybe for most people at this point. I don't know, but I think it's the need to be chained or restrained in some way to, an obligation or whatever for an extended period of time that like really doesn't sit well with us. I mean, if I could go off on some like journey or something like where my experiences are going to be like varied every day, or fresh and stuff, like maybe I would be a little more content in general, or a little more like, oh man, I can't wait for today to see what happens. But it's like, everybody who has a job, basically, especially a job that's like, at a repetitive function, they already know what that day is.
Yep.
You know how the story ends for that day, and it gets to be so fucking soul crushing almost.
Yeah, it does. And then I blame Hollywood too, because yeah, I'm talking about this movie about, you know, like him going off on this journey. Like you said, it'd be great just to be able to do that. Like, grounded in reality, like, okay, how am I going to pay my bills in that month I'm not working? Am I going to still have my job when I get back? You know, like, can I be away from my family for that long? No. You know, you can't do stuff like that. You know, it's like, man, like, Hollywood, you hit it on the nail, but not really. Because nobody can do that unless they're, like, rich, you know, and they have the time, and they can do that. Because, like, yeah, like, how do you pay for all those plane tickets? How do you pay for all those hotel rooms? How do you pay for all those meals? You know what I mean? It's just, what did his clients do? Like, oh, he magically had a colleague that was going to take his clients for him for 2 weeks? You know, it's just, like, I hate that, because it's, like, that puts it into perspective, and it says, yeah, you know, you really need to do some of these things, but then I think about it, I'm like, man, it's totally fake.
Right.
So, like, where do I get that middle ground, you know, where it's achievable, but it's not totally fake, you know? Like, gotta find their path. I'm, like, making all these weird hand gestures. I'm, like, walking like an Egyptian over here. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I've had a similar conversation or a similar question to people, and they always have this answer like, well, you know, it's up to you to find those moments in each day where you can, you know, it's not all or nothing. You know, it's up to you to figure out, like, you know, I don't know, like, to create little pieces of each day where you can feel, you know, I don't know, challenged or stimulated in some way. But it's like, yeah, okay. Well,
find me this moment when I'm cooking this jerk food, you know what I mean? Or, you know, whatever, I'm on the phone helping some guy yell at me. You know, it's like, where's that moment, son of a bitch?
Oh, wait, hold on, sir. My timer just went off. It's my scheduled bliss/stimulus moment. If you could give me, like, 5 minutes, I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah, I need to find a moment today, and you're not helping me. Right. Give me 5 minutes. Thanks.
I don't know. I mean, I guess a lot of times I get accused of being just a negative person in general, because
I could see that.
Well, it's like I'm willing.
Just kidding.
I'm willing to call out things, you know, for what they are. I'm willing to, like, you know, confront, like, the ugly truths of things, and, you know, I guess it would be fair to say that it becomes easy to get sucked into it or to get caught up in it and only focus on those things. But I feel like often the people who have the smallest capacity for discussing those things are the people who have the least wrong in their lives. You know, and it's almost like, well, I fucking figured it out, so don't fucking mess up my thing, you know, like, don't fucking pop my sailboat or the wind, or, you know, whatever I mean, the sail. Don't rip my sail.
Don't pop the sailboat. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that.
That almost sounded like I was, like, from an Eastern European country trying to speak American.
Like, hey, come by this. Don't pop your sailboat over it.
Don't pop my sailboat.
You popped my sailboat, and what are you going to do? Oh, gosh, we're not racist, I swear. But you should write that down, because if we could just have, like, that's a good way to make some money. Just say, like, dumb stuff like Yogi Berra, you know, and all his, like, yogiisms. Exactly. You could have, like, Claude Willisisms or something. Don't pop my sailboat. But no, I know what you're saying. But see, that's the thing, though, like, a lot of people mistake calling out bullshit to be negative, when it's really not being negative. Like,
no, I'm calling it out because I want it to change. Sorry, I just had to.
No, but... Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, you know, like, just because I'm saying the thing that you don't want to say, but you're actually thinking, doesn't make me negative. Like, you're being negative thinking about it, and it's actually worse that you're keeping it on the inside instead of letting it out, because that's how people get, like, heart disease and die. You know, that's why people, like, from our dad's generation died when they were 55 years old, because they were told that they couldn't talk about being anxious or being depressed. Like, they had to keep it on the inside, and eventually it raised their blood pressure to the point they got heart disease and had a heart attack when they were 50. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's, I mean, obviously our dads are still alive, which is good. You know, but I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, you think about it, like, your dad, you know, had a heart attack, like, a couple years ago.
Yep.
He's not even 60. You know, my dad has heart problems, you know, like, I mean, they're you know, I mean, they're not, like, on the verge of dying or anything like that by no means whatsoever, but that's what happens. And, you know, that's, like, one of the curses of our dad's side of the family. You know, all those people, they're non-emotional people. You know, like they don't deal with it. But we're just kind of getting off topic. But yeah, call it bullshit. Don't keep it on the inside, and it'll give you a heart attack. That's my moral of the story. You write that down for the Willisism. You can take credit for it if you want. Edited by me, so like, yeah, I don't care.
Hey.
Well, you know, that's the thing. Like that book. You saw that book, Shit My Dad Says, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's like the perfect example of like, you know, if you read it, it's funny. Like that guy is hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how he can remember the things that he said word for word, but you know, it's like that's like one of the perfect things. Like, you know, he monetized it. You know, they even made a TV show out of it for a while.
Yeah.
With that guy. You know.
William Shatner.
Yes, William Shatner. Oh boy.
The guy.
Yeah, that guy.
But yeah, I mean, at some point he probably walked around just like fucking audio recording him or something. But I mean, it didn't last. You know, like it's not like an ongoing thing. But for a good year or so, I mean, that guy was white hot, and you know, even to be, I guess, a flash in the pan or whatever, I'll take it. You know, like give me something.
Yeah. Flash in the pan, write that one down too.
All
right. Yeah.
Well, we just have to put more work, I guess. But how do you devote more when you have to do work? You know.
Yeah.
That's
you gotta
it.
find that moment. No, I know. We'll figure something out.
That'll be the title of this episode. Find the moment.
Cool. All right. I'll sign off for now, but I'll keep in touch with you. We'll plan another one next week. All right.
Will do.
Cool. Later, dude.
Bye.
Bye.